There are so many different ways that you can lay out a hero section. So if all of your hero sections look exactly the same on every single website, it's time to shake things up. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 12 unique section layouts that you can steal and use as inspiration for your next design project. So let's get into it. I'm a big fan of this first section. You can see that they've got all the important elements, the header, subheader, all of these images, but the only difference is they've squished all of that information down to the bottom half so they can utilize the top half for an image. Now, I really like that they've got the black and white image, and then they've got this banner that's kind of waving through the image. They've got a good spot for their logo front and center, and then a few additional details here right below the image. So switching things up like this can just make it feel new and fresh without having to get too crazy. Our next section is a fantastic way to showcase a product. We've got the large image here to the right, and then we've also got a smaller image here. In our example, this is a great way to show a close-up of whatever product it is that you're showcasing. And then on the right, you can show that product in action. Now in the example here, this image to the right is actually a video that can be clicked. And then over here to the left, they've got all of their text. One thing that I am not a huge fan of is they've got the header here and then the subtext is up above that, which isn't super user friendly because people are almost always going to read the text that's on the top. So that could be adjusted, but overall, I think the layout is really strong. All right, this next one is showcasing a really cool use of masks. So what they're doing is they're taking really basic shapes here. They've got rounded corners, and within this shape, they've masked it to have the image inside of that. And then what they're doing is utilizing this space over here to fit some additional text. Now, one reason that I love this section layout is it doesn't take insane design skills to take a few very basic shapes, round out the corners, and then use that as a mask for your images. It gives it a really fun, playful feel. Plus, it's always going to be unique because you're going to be able to use different shapes every time. Everything else about this layout is really basic. We've got left aligned text, we've got our header, our subheader, and then down here we've got what look like a few different buttons or tabs. If they are tabs that change this image, that is going to be a little bit more difficult to develop. But overall, just masking your images like this is a really fun way to give a unique feel, so all of your images aren't just basic squares or rectangles. This next section does a few things very similarly to the first example that we showed, where they are taking all of the content of the hero section and pushing it down to the bottom half of the viewport. Now this can easily be done as long as you make sure that your hero section is always at least the height of your viewport. You want to make sure that things don't get squished, and you also want to make sure that you're not wasting space. But we want to make sure that if there is wasted space and we need additional things to show up above the fold of the hero section, that we're utilizing that space. Otherwise, it's totally fine. As long as you're doing it on purpose and for a reason, I think it can give a really cool effect and looks really nice. All right, coming to our next one here, there's a little bit more going on in this hero section, and it's done tastefully, and so it doesn't feel too overwhelming. But one thing that I do love is their use of the two different colors in the section background, right? So we've got this darker color to the right, a lighter color to the left, which helps with the contrast of the text. But then we've got this image that is going over both colors. It just really gives it a lot of depth, and it really draws a lot of attention to that image. Now over here on the left, they've got great hierarchy for all of the different text. And then again, we've got a banner right here. This one is going straight. It's slightly angled up. Again, in that first example, we saw a banner that was kind of waving up and down through the website. These banners are a really awesome way to just grab someone's attention. They remind me a lot of like caution tape around a crime scene, right? And so they're meant to be seen. And so if you have a specific message on there, especially if you can have that banner moving, maybe it's like a sliding banner. I think those are really fantastic ways to just pull in people's attention. It makes the website feel really interactive. And so overall, this is just a really playful section, and I think it's done really well. This next example is a really standard section, but I think it has a really clean and simplistic feel, right? One thing that you'll notice right off the bat is that this image is full width and it's really narrow. It doesn't have a lot of height to it, and this really is only going to work for certain types of images. In this example, you're able to see everybody's faces, But one thing that is kind of difficult is you can't see what it is that they're doing or what they're working on. And so it just feels like you're cutting off an important part of the image. So just make sure that you're careful in which images you select. But if you have a really wide image that you feel like showcases everything that you do, that's fantastic. Now, the other thing that you're going to want to think about is the size of that image should be different in mobile, right? You don't want to have this super tiny image on a mobile phone. It's just going to be too difficult to see. So without taking into consideration all of the mobile responsiveness, I think this is a really great section. We've got the sub details down below. We've got a few data points here, right? We've got projects completed, years of experience, and then we've got a great colorful call to action. So really simplistic section layout, as long as we're careful with what images that we utilize. This next section is perfect for any type of service or product that requires a complex form. So examples of this are Airbnb or Zillow or anything where you're inputting dates or locations, anything like that with a form that needs your attention or needs the user's attention. This is going to work perfectly, right? You've got your form to the left, you've got left aligned text that is very close to that form, so it's easy to read. I do love that something about this text kind of pulls me towards the form. And oftentimes if somebody comes to a website like this, the information that they need can only be displayed once they fill out that form. So we don't want them to have to scroll or search for the form to be able to input their details and find the property or the vacation or the flight or whatever it might be that they're looking for. And so this is a really fantastic way to just get people exactly what they need right off the bat. Now, I do love also all of the left aligned text, but they've bumped over this subtext a little bit and put just a little icon. Simple things like this just really shake it up. You can see that this would be a lot more boring if everything was perfectly aligned and there was no variation in where things were laid out. And then certainly they've done a great job with the hierarchy as well. I love the drastic differences between sizes and then also colors of fonts. It just makes it really, really easy to consume. All right, our next section layout and example here is, of course, FigConf. This is a great example. It kind of gives me like almost like this old school PowerPoint vibe, but I think it's a really fantastic way to showcase multiple images. And then, of course, they've squished, very similar to our other examples, they've squished all of their text and details down to the bottom. So the first thing that people see are the images. Now, of course, you want to make sure that the images are really relevant. One thing that I was not a huge fan on with this one is that these were all so dark. Now, I'm not sure if they had some sort of hover effect where if you hover over them, a video starts playing or the image at least gets brighter. But I really love the way that you can use these different shapes to mask your images and then just show a ton of stuff. I also love that it kind of feels like a sun, like the rays coming out, which I feel like kind of draws you into the header, which feels like it's kind of at the core of the sun. And so really great hierarchy. They show you everything that they need to above the fold, which is really impressive because this is a lot of information. And of course, anybody that works at Figma knows what they're doing when it comes to design. All right, so our next section layout example is one of my very favorite trends still, and I use this on a lot of websites that I design and build, and that is having different images or icons within your header text. Now, this only works when your header is large enough that it doesn't just feel like there's too much going on. But I think this works for a number of reasons. Number one, it just makes it a lot more fun to read. You also are able to put these images within the text. And like they say, an image is worth 1,000 words. So if you're really trying to convey what it is that you do, but you don't want to have your hero or your H1 be a full paragraph, what you can do is embed these different images and icons, which just really tell a story. Now, it also gives me the vibe of having emojis put within text, which is something that we're all used to, right? Because we text, we send emojis. So it just really brings your text to life and makes it a lot more readable. Now, the one thing I'm not sure about is having the call to action button inside the text. I almost didn't realize that this was a button. You would certainly need to do testing on this, and I think it's a fun idea. But I would still say that play it safe with your calls to action. Put those buttons in places where people expect them to be. That's a really common convention within web design. People kind of know where to look for the buttons. But other than that, I think this is a really awesome example. All right, so our next example is really just using a basic grid and creating something really, really beautiful. Basically, they have 4 different boxes. They've got one for their header and subheader. They've got 2 for images showcasing their product. And then they've got this one, which is a call to action. Now, I think the reason that people love these grid layouts so much is they just feel so organized. It's really easy to go from one element to the next, especially when they're color coded and they have different things within them. Now, I really like this example because everything has very different colors, right? We've got this light purple for the background of all of our text, and then we've got darker images and darker backgrounds behind our images just to kind of separate those. Now, the only thing I'm not totally sure on is this arrow. If it's a call to action, I'm not really sure what the call to action is. Like if I click that, is it just going to scroll down? Is it going to take me somewhere? So I would recommend adjusting this grid to maybe have an actual button with text fit inside of that. But otherwise, I think anytime you use a grid like this, it's just going to look clean and professional, especially when you can have all these different divs or elements be different sizes. You can't lose with this. All right, so this next one is a perfect example of something that I've learned in my years of designing websites. And that is sometimes less is more. And oftentimes when you do less, it feels far more luxurious or high end. And I really love what they've done here. Of course, purple is just naturally a luxury color, which really helps with that. Also, this serif font is going to help with the overall vibe of this website. But I actually really love that they haven't tried to use all of the space here. They've got an image down here at the left, which is a clickable video. I imagine that would actually be running like in the background with no audio up until you click it. And then they've got just a 3-word header right here. They've got all of this blank white space out here that isn't being utilized, but I feel like it's very simple and it shows you exactly what you're looking for. They've got some details right here, which I believe are just details about the video. This would also be a great place for some subtext. And then down here, their call to action isn't even a button. It's just a different colored text. Now, I think that looks really nice. Certainly it doesn't draw as much attention. And I'm not totally sure about the contrast here between the red and the purple, but this is a great section layout that you could use for a luxury, simplistic website. All right, this is our last layout, and this is one of my favorites. First off, I just love the colors of this, kind of that dark green, dark mode website I think is just really in right now. But I also love what they've done with this image. We've seen this a lot, and they are showing a great example of how this can be utilized to where you're only showing them the most important information, right? This doesn't feel like things are cropped out, but it's showing you an example of what their software does, right? Down below, they have a bunch of logos for some social proof, which you can utilize this space for logos, for testimonials, reviews, anything like that. I think that is a fantastic use of your space on your hero section. Now, I also love the horizontal aligned content up here. So we've got our header to the left, which is short and sweet. We've got our subtext here, and then we've got our form. Now, like I said before, less is more when it comes to these layouts. They've put only the most important information here. And then I also love that they have their nav up here, which is very thin, which just gives them way more space to give everything room to breathe and then really draw your attention towards this call to action. So I hope you enjoyed all the layouts that I shared with you in this video. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting that like button down below. It really lets me know what types of videos you guys like. Plus, don't forget to watch my other videos that you can find right here about other unique section layouts to help improve your design. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.